good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 30th of November. And I've got a couple of stories here that might tickle your interest. The first one is I'm going to connect actually some dots here because an interesting thing happened to me over the last few years with my smart meter, and some of the issues I had of that with the RF pulse frequency that's coming out of the smart meter. But this is going to tie in with a recent incident with the US Embassy in Cuba and their operatives coming down with mysterious ailments like loss of hearing, confused thinking, nosebleeds, damage to the central nervous system, and so on and so forth. And so I'm going to take you through what Health Canada thinks of non-ionizing radiation and what the report is on the incident that happened down in Cuba. Okay, non-ionizing radiation, here we go. CBC, cell phones and health, Health Canada's precautions, compare. Okay, it's kind of interesting when you read through the article. They really play down the whole thing. This advice relates to limiting exposure to the radio waves and electromagnetic fields, or EMF, emitted by cell phones and base towers, a type of non-ionizing radiation also given off by common sources such as AM/FM transmitters and TV broadcast signals. Ionizing radiation, such as the kind emitted by UV rays or X-rays, breaks the chemical bonds and releases ions, whereas non-ionizing radiation, such as radio or microwave, cannot break the chemical bonds but can produce other effects on matter, such as heat. Previous guidance from Health Canada has suggested that people could limit their use of cell phones if they were concerned about an unproven suggestion the devices increases one's risk to developing brain cancer, but the new advice is more definitive. Really, it's more proactive in encouraging cell phone users to find ways to limit their exposure and to empower parents to make healthy choices to reduce their children's exposure, explains James McNamee, Division Chief for Health Effects and Assessments in Health Canada's Bureau of Consumer and Clinical Radiation Protection. Uncertain research results. A brain tumour study found no causal link. So they're really playing this down because President Nicolas Sarkozy speaks on his cell phone. But when we go over to this story, this is Towson University Journal of International Affairs, covert attack on US diplomats in Cuba, anomaly or the future of warfare. Okay, beginning in November 2016, shortly after Election Day, and continuing through August 2017, 24 US diplomats stationed at the embassy and some other American and Canadian visitors experienced a diverse body of symptoms that resulted in permanent hearing loss and brain damage, triggering a travel warning in September 2017. US diplomats experienced ear-ringing, nausea, severe headaches, memory loss, loss of balance and concentration, felt vibrations, heard chirping noises and sounds that were only audible in certain parts of the room, and sustained concussions and damage to the central nervous systems while inside their homes and hotel rooms, among other symptoms. This event, dubbed Health Attacks by US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, brings back memories of the Cold War, lest we forget the Bay of Pigs and Cuban Missile Crisis. US relations with Cuba have been strained since the end of World War II, which also marked the beginning of a new era of intelligence and warfare that expands far beyond the use of guns and bombs. Okay, so we'll just scroll down here and we'll just read this little section. Electromagnetic energy, on the other hand, can not only explain all the symptoms, it is easily pinpointed and can travel through walls. Given that the entire nervous system is run electrically, EMF has the potential to manipulate all human sensations and bodily functions, whether it is sonic, electromagnetic, or something else. The US is likely dealing with some form of directed energy kinetic weapon. Directed energy weapons assume many diverse forms, with targets ranging from enemy equipment to human beings, and from single individuals to entire cities. Unlike traditional weapons, these are generally for the purpose other than direct killing. While much of the US is preoccupied with North Korean missile and nuclear capabilities, for example, high-energy electromagnetic pulse weapons are designed to disrupt or damage electronic equipment and power grids on potentially massive scales via satellite or missile. Also, an area of concern on a much smaller scale, the United States Navy's silent and invisible drone-killing laser gained media attention just this past summer. It destroys with more precision than a gun. Returning to the biological element, in 2012 there was drama over the Russian zombie gun, boasted by Vladimir Putin, designed to incapacitate or zombify targets with radiation. The US Department of Defense's non-lethal weapons program sponsors many other similar devices, one example being active denial systems, which use radio waves to burn skin and inflict pain. They were deployed in Afghanistan for area denial and crowd control purposes and are now being used by domestic police forces. The list is endless. All types and frequencies of kinetic energy have been examined in the name of defense. Even brainwaves are now considered for offensive intelligence gathering and protection from foreign intelligence as SIGINT advances. The diversity and complexity of these weapons raises questions regarding their position under international law. Devices like the one used in Cuba complicates the laws and ethics of international force. Unarmed and non-deadly warfare is currently in purgatory, withstanding many of the traditional rules of war. Situations like that of the Cuban embassy result. To those unfamiliar with electronic warfare, the possibility of an invisible electromagnetic weapon may be unnerving, bizarre, and shocking. The technology described in the former paragraph may seem so advanced that it appears to be entirely recent. However, weaponization of electromagnetic energy goes back long before the age of terrorism, having been carried out throughout the Cold War and leading to the production of modern-day lasers and cutting-edge missile defense. One notable event in history that has piqued the interest of US officials involved in the Cuban investigation is a time the Soviet government microwaved the US embassy in Moscow for 25 years, significantly exceeding the maximum exposure standards before public interest arose in 1972. Demanding the immediate removal of all US personnel and inciting an onslaught of lawsuits against the US governments. The US government was not only aware it was happening and did nothing, it also saw it as an opportunity to study the effects of non-ionizing radiation. There you go. There was concern over the intention of the Soviets and what they knew about radiation. The CIA suggests that they were attempting to manipulate the behavior or mental state of US officials, perhaps even control their minds. The State Department assigned DARPA the task of research, which sent medical workers to draw blood from the diplomats under the cover story giving birth to DARPA Program Plan 562 or Project Pandora, the forgotten chapter of Cold War research that aimed to understand the neurological effects of microwaves. While mind control was eliminated as the purpose of the Soviet microwave beam, it didn't stop the Pentagon and intelligence agency from orchestrating experiments to test its weapons applications. Following the tradition of unethical defense projects of dubious scientific merit like MK-Ultra, US officials are undoubtedly raking through this heap of research now to understand what happened in Cuba. Not only is the research potentially relevant, the story of the so-called Moscow signal is being compared to the situation in Havana by many journalists. It's hard to resist noticing the similarities when so few stories like these are available to the public. Once again, a Cold War adversary is using covert, non-lethal technology on US diplomats within their own embassy, and their intentions are also once again muddled. So there you go, non-ionizing radiation is a problem. Microwave radiation is a problem, and it is dangerous to human beings. Okay, so this is your cell phone, this is your smart meter, this is your wireless phone in your home, this is your router. Any of these things are all spraying off either pulsed non-ionizing radiation in the case of your smart meter, or non-ionizing radiation in the form of your microwave and your modem and your wireless telephone. Okay, well, I hope those stories piqued your interest as they did mine, and I am continually scouring the news to pick out some of the most interesting stories that I can find, and there's been several of late. So I'm sure I'll be making several more videos over the weekend, and so this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. Please like and subscribe below if you enjoyed what you've seen, and you take care, and we'll talk to you real soon. See you now. Bye.